Welcome back, everybody, to the Mental Health Podcast with the topic of tiger parenting. My name is Brittany. I'll be your host for today. I would like to welcome back Rakesh and Suvin. Hi, guys. What's
Hello,
up?
what's up?
Okay, so thank you for joining on tonight for this sort of broad topic. So today's topic is tiger parenting, and we would like to bring the notion of tiger parenting into this sort of worldview of how it affects our mental health. I'll pass it over to Suvin first. What do you think tiger parenting is, and yeah, like what's your definition of it in your head?
My definition of tiger parenting is where that our parents don't understand our needs, and our wants because I would guess it's because they came from a different timeline, and because the world is not the same as it was before, and we have our own certain needs and new point of view, a new point of view. So I feel like they for them to grasp our new wants and needs and stuff like that, it's hard for them to comprehend. So in if the, because of that case, they feel like they have to like they're scared to put us in an open world environment because it's coming us as a university student, right? We have to explore the whole, and I also feel like they're a little bit scared because their child is like, oh no, they're growing old, they're not the little kid that they used to love, us, think that we are fragile, stuff like that. And to break that stigma and make them understand, that we are fine, we are the good parents. I feel like that one of the notions that we have to break through and make it explain to our parents. I feel like tiger parenting should be how to say, should be the past, and not brought up now, and that's what I feel like.
Okay, so when you talk about tiger parenting, I don't know why, but the main thing that I relate it to is Asian parenting. But again, that's not just the case. I mean, I wouldn't say that, it's just a Asian parenting thing because, I mean, it is there all over the world. And it's just like what Suvin mentioned, it's a very different style of parenting, and they sort of not to like understand the kind of people that we are. Their way of upbringing is very different from the way that we see, the way that we might upbring our kids in the future. So it's a bit different. You have the element of being a bit strict, expecting results, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's my take on tiger parenting lah as a whole.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rakesh. In terms of tiger parenting, when we think of the word, it's always like we tend to relate it to the Asian style of parenting, specifically in Malaysia as well as the whole of Asia. Parents tend to be very harsh on their children's with like high expectations, and they just want the best and the best outcome from their child as is. So in terms of relating and correlating that, I feel like it's really relevant. But I would like to ask you guys, have you gone through this parenting style at home, and what are its effects on you and your mental health? We'll go with Subin first.
The first time I got the taste of tiger parenting is me through high school, because I guess it was always been there, but I just didn't realize it till high school. And then that is where you you got into teenagerhood, right? And then you got to experience your friends, will ask you to like come for your birthdays, and that this type of stuff usually wouldn't happen in primary school. So to see my parents, they deny my permission to go to my friend's house, to enjoy their birthday parties, or for the case including introducing my friends to my home to to celebrate my birthday. Or as for example, universities, where normally after class we always go out to eat, stuff like that. So my parents will like usually deny the permissions to go out. They want us to straight away come back home right after class finish. So that is when I like really experienced the taste of tiger parenting. What about you, Alkesh?
Well, for me, to be completely honest, when I hear people talk about the way that their parents bring them up, tiger parenting, and when I think about the way that I was brought up, I gotta say I'm sort of fortunate that I never really been through something like that. But the reason why I can talk about it is because the people around me are like that. So like my friends' parents, I've heard my friends' parents who are like that. I've even my cousins, my uncles and aunties, they sort of have the thing. So like what Suvin mentioned, it's when you go out with your tuition or anything, and then they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to fetch you like at this time. You don't need to be out after than that. They don't understand that sometimes you might want to go study with a friend, and group studying is something beneficial. You feel it's a little beneficial for you, and you can easily you can improve in your academics when you have that kind of environment. But it's a bit different from how they were when they were young. They grew up differently, just studying by themselves. So they believe that, I guess, the trust isn't there. So they don't really believe that what we need is the way that can help us. But what they believe is, they have a mindset, and that is the only thing that can bring us up. So yeah, I've never really had a share of tiger parenting, thankfully, but I've seen it all around me lah. Like my friends having their curfews, and when they go back with even I've even had friends when they go back with results like getting like a 90%, and their parents are like, oh, so what happened to the extra 10%?
The extra 10%, yes,
Yeah.
I've heard this so much, and
Yeah.
I think actually, to be honest, when you put it like that, I feel like tiger parenting is just extremely unrealistic expectations on the children, because based on a lot of the research and the things that I've read, parents tend to idealize, or they picture the future of their kid before their kid is even born. It's a very common thing in Asian households specifically. I think like in Korea, they have something called a conception dream, when they go and they would hope the child becomes the way it is, like the way they want it to be. And then even in Malaysia itself, we have so many parents who pay to see fortune tellers and all these priests and monks and everything to sort of dictate where the child's sort of future will be. And to be honest, I find this so interesting, because the parents would pay a large amount of money to go and see a complete stranger who sort of has knowledge on astrology and things, to dictate where the child's direction is, without possibly asking the child what they want to do. Do you guys think this is a common thing? Because I've heard from so many of my friends, so many people, my acquaintances and everything. That's what they say. They never really have a choice in the decisions of their lives, but rather they grow up wanting to please their parents, because as kids, we are sort of taught to be grateful for everything our parents have done. But so as they grow up, they want to sort of please their parents and just do everything that it is that their parents have said. And to a certain extent, I believe that there are some people who are like that. But then in on the flip side, tiger parenting also breeds one of the most hot-headed rebels, I would say. So that's from my side, that's what I've seen so far. What about you guys? Have you guys seen the same things?
Yeah. I definitely have, like, again, fortunately, me and the people close around me, we have not been through this. We have always had the freedom of choice on what we want to do with our lives when we grow up and everything. But I have come across certain people, in my high school life, even in college, and when we ask them like, oh, so what are your plans after this, and they're like, oh, I think I'm going to go into pharmacy or medicine something, and like, oh, so you're interested in doing that? And they're like, no way, I really all I want to do is just like start my own blog and write. But yeah, my parents don't really let me do that, because I mean, we have all come across the meme, Asian parents be like, it's either you're a doctor, engineer, lawyer, or a failure. So yeah.
That's a very relatable thought. I've heard that so many
I've
times.
come across many people who don't really have the freedom of choice to choose what they want. Certain people, I guess, they're kind of like molded into it, so they're like fine with it. They're sort of like accepted, this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. Let me just do it to satisfy my parents and everything. But a huge number of people I know are really dissatisfied. Even if whatever you are doing, let's say, becoming a doctor or an engineer or even a lawyer, let's say, these are jobs, if you really climb up the ladder smartly, you are going to be earning good figures every month. You have a good lifestyle, but To be very frank, in the first few years, or maybe even for a long time in their careers, they won't really have the satisfaction and happiness doing what they are doing. It's just a matter of, okay, this is good for me. But when you talk about passion, talk about, do you love what you do? I don't really think they are that satisfied with their choice.
Mm. Yeah, you make a very good point, Subin. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have the same freedom as what Rakesh had during his childhood. But speaking of astrologer, right? I can think of an incident where there was one time my parents told me that they went to see an astrologer and talking about my future, and then they came to me and told me, like, that you will do great in the future. You have like a lot of good luck and stuff like that. And then they drop a bomb, like a drop a bomb on me and tell, like, you have to be a doctor. You have to be a doctor. You'll do well in this one, and stuff like that. So because, like, I guess because after they see the astrologer, they thought like I have a good future, and like, oh, they have like after that, right, they put an extra amount of hard effort to push me into becoming doctor, like improve my grades and stuff like that. Because during my childhood, my grade wasn't that good to begin with. So to see that they're putting pressure on me, and it resulted into me having extra classes of tuitions on the Saturday and Sunday. It's like there was non-stop. Like, I didn't have enough time for myself. It's like constantly being in this academic circle, and my schedule was usually packed. Like, that was like really draining me lah. But look at now, I'm not a doctor. I'm studying computer science and cybersecurity. So that explains
Yeah.
everything lah.
Yeah, so see, when we look at this, I find it that, usually when parents try super hard to dictate their child's life, it almost never turns out the way they want it to. And I would like to bring back a point that Rakesh mentioned. Dissatisfaction, that word. I've seen it a lot in the current youth, and unfortunately now this era is the time where mental health and anxieties are at their highest, and especially with COVID right now with the lockdown, this word dissatisfaction, if it's so prevalent in the current younger society. And isn't it I would find it really ironic that society that has so much freedom in terms of social media, in terms of technology, are so dissatisfied with their life choices. Like, what do you guys think on that? Because personally speaking, I find that when you do not take your life decisions into your own hands, and you allow tiger parenting, so as in your parents are really strict on you for doing something that for you to do something that you do not want, and to in order to please your parents you do it, but the effects of that on your mental health would be inevitably severe because sorry, evidently severe because it's very obvious that you're doing something you do not like. And you know how they always say that you should put in 100% effort into the things that you're doing. But what if the things that you're doing is not something you like at all? Could you imagine if Subin was doing medicine right now? I think he would be really really upset about that. And when we look into this, right, we were looking at the sort of the spectrum of how they start, because it's always acceptance. I accept that I agree with my parents and everything, but then dissatisfaction slowly builds, and then they end up sort of having a lot of hatred and anger towards themselves first for not being able to stand up to their parents, and then on that they will project their anger towards the people around them. So yeah, I feel like this dissatisfaction, it's like a seed in you that slowly grows as the more you do something that you're not inclined to. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I do. Like, meeting your parents' expectation is like a whole nother of mental challenge, because ever since my parents told me that you have to be a doctor, so I have to like do extra hard in terms of academics to meet the expectations. But I wasn't really like academically inclined back then, so it was like a very hard challenging for me. And like, to see that constantly having a pressure on your back for you to meet the expectations, like very very challenging and detrimental to my mental health. So to seeing that, and looking at, in terms of what Brittany said, like looking at social medias, and then you look at you go into around social media, and then you see Western worlds and how their parenting is like, and they're giving their child the freedom and stuff like that. I would sometimes think like, why wouldn't my parents would do like this to me? Like, why they are being harsh? Like, why they never come and ask me what do I like doing when I grow up? Something like that. So that was constantly how to say, like a, I couldn't find a word. Could be.
It's very it's like a very heavy weight on your shoulders in an unconscious way. I feel that these type of parenting styles tend to breed these type of children. But I want to point out one thing. For years and years, tiger parenting has been implemented in our culture. It's a very cultural thing actually. So but there's always got to be a reason as to why it exists, and frankly speaking, I think it ties into the fact that there is a lot of worry when it comes to bringing up a child, because family reputation is a primary and a really important thing in Malaysia. And with and especially the youths these days, they a lot of them, not all of them obviously, but they have a lot of tendency to go out partying, to go out drinking, smoking, for both the girls and the boys. So I've seen especially in high schools, the way even teachers and parents are with their kids. They tend to sort of clamp down on their freedom and not allow them to leave the house and all that, because of that they're afraid of the bad influences that their friends could have on their kids. So what do you guys think on this? And I would like to hear from your guys' point of view, because you guys are male. Sorry, men. Sorry, and you guys tend to. I feel like there's a lot of restrictions as well, and a lot of harsh expectations on you guys, as well as for myself as well. But I would like to hear from you guys first.
Right. I do agree with a point which you brought up, which was how parents and teachers back in high school, they sort of like set many rules and like sort of like regulations which kind of like pin you down to, it really just stops you from doing all things. It takes away your freedom, it takes away your will to make a choice. And it's true what you said, this comes from a huge part of them being a bit scared, and they sort of like fear that we might go down the wrong path. And I would say that that fear is actually built up from the lack of trust which parents have on children. And I think that is the main issue of the whole tiger parenting. I would say the main issue is the lack of trust. So sure, maybe at a very young age you have to guide your child, you have to let them know the principles, what are the rights, what are the wrongs, what are the actions you got to take, and the consequences of your actions. But I think that parents who sort of like tend to lean to tiger parenting, it kind of like they don't really stop at a certain age. They keep pushing you until even if you only can help a baby walk. Once the baby starts walking, you don't really assist it to walk anymore. But I think like tiger parenting, a huge part of it is even after I've started walking, you are holding my hand and you're like, okay, you walk in this direction which I'm telling you to walk. So that is sort of like how I've always seen it. And I've always felt like the way that, this can be overcome is parents have to start talking to their children more and understanding how their child thinks. I would say that children these days, I'm not just saying it's parents, but even like, the youth these days, I gotta say, we are all not 100% truthful to our parents. And that is because, the stricter you get, the more you are sort of like bringing up children who tend to hide things from you. So I would say that parents got to like start to understand their child more, and that way children will be sort of like more open to about what they do, and how they kind of like see things, what are the things that they like to get involved in, and so on. And that trust should be there. So there's no more like sort of like locking you down to certain things. There's no like forcing you to do certain things, and it's I think you kind of get my point lah. But coming back to what Brittany mentioned about how you wanted a view on, from us men, I would say that based on my experience, because I do have some female friends as well and everything. And yes, the style of parenting is a little different when it comes to men and women. I mean, like even I have a sister at home, and the way that I've been brought up and the way that she's been brought up is a bit slightly different. When it comes, it may be little things, but I guess that, as it builds up, it's not really little anymore. And I think one thing that I can really think of right now is curfews. Curfews is a little different when it comes to, for us men, and curfews are a little different when it comes to women. And yeah, again, I would say it comes down to a matter of trust lah. Sometimes they may not trust, or sometimes they don't really, the concern is there about safety. So that's I guess that's what the issue is lah, when it comes to parenting for men and for women.
I can get what Rakesh and Brittany is coming from in terms of like where the mentality of tiger parenting came to be, and I feel like they're somewhat involved in how our parents brought them up, and they feel like, oh, because I'm in a good position now, I'm going to do the exact same things that what my parents did to my child, and hopefully that will turn out to be my child to be be successful and do good in life. But I would totally agree with what Araki said about trust, because you see, when during the transition between high school and university, right, that is when I really like start to communicate with my parents like truthfully, because I get what you mean. What Brittany said, like like we as teenagers like to go out clubbing, go partying, drinking, stuff like that, right? So sometimes my mom will ask like I know they kind of worry because they have the mentality like those type of places is usually bad, but that's where bad people hang out and stuff like that. But that is not technically true. Maybe in their time, maybe that was, but times have changed since then. So I feel like communicating with the parents truthfully, that would be the number one thing. Like for example, I have an experience where my dad, let's pull back a little bit. Like, speaking of curfew, like my parents had strict curfew. Let's say after my SPM, right, I had curfew that 8 p.m. I must be back home, and I couldn't go certain far distant places. Like I was living in Chera, so I can go like certain places like, near my school places and stuff like that. Anything further, like I was totally not allowed it. So I was gradually, this is what I did to combat that curfewness, the curfew restrictions, where from 8 a.m. I slowly switched to 9 p.m., then 10, to 11, like I make my parents understand. And speaking of the experiences, right, like telling truthfully, there was one time my dad like asked me like, you came late home, you came around 2 o'clock last night, like did you went to club? I literally told him, I went to this club, this is the first time I'm experiencing, and stuff like that, good music. He's like, yeah, okay, good lah. And then he just gave me advice like, just watch your back, like, yeah, I understand. I guess that's because man-to-man conversation, like because I'm the oldest child in the family, and my mom worries that I will go and mix with wrong people. That's the only thing they're scared of, right? Mix with wrong people and getting all these bad habits. But my dad understood, like, okay, because I'm a man, right, and I'll go out, and mix with a lot of new people, and I think he kind of understood that type of way, and he just gave me advice like, I understand you go out drinking and having fun, just watch your back, and stuff like that. Don't drunk and drive, don't cause a scene. Just go there, have a good time with your friends, and do come back. But my mom was totally a different story. Like I have to even though now I don't have a curfew, there's time to time, every 1 or 2 hours she'll check in. She will just text me where. So I have to tell her, oh, I'm here and here. Yeah, so I get what you mean, and I also have friends that have severe trust issues with their parents, where their parents have to video call them to see whether their child is there or not, like where the places that they tell to the parents they were. So stuff like that lah. And I have a friend who go to her friend. It's my female friend. So they go to let's say they're having like a girls' party, right? They will take additional pictures that their friends together, and they will keep, and they won't show to their parents. And when they do go out like clubbing, drinking, right, and then when the mom texted them, right, or then they'll just send a picture that they took last time, and I'm still here. I'm with my friends now at their home. So I have experiences like that, with my close friends. So I feel like communication is the key to make our parents understand our needs, and why we are doing what we're doing. So that's how I combated my tiger parenting, because my parents was very very tough on me because I'm the oldest child. I'm the first one who's like exploring out out into the world, right? And make and giving them telling them everything I do. Yeah, with like no filter, something like that. Then they know like, okay, now they have a sense of trust. Okay, what he's telling me is what he did lah. So as long he tells me and doesn't lie to me where I go and stuff like that, then it's fine. Then until now I haven't experienced this, I haven't experienced any tiger parenting. So that's
I
my
think
experience.
I think as we grow older, they have a tendency to realize that that my young child is not a child anymore, and we need to sort of give him or her the freedom that they need. In terms of my personal experience, I have been I feel like I wouldn't call it specifically tiger parenting, but there were a lot of heavy expectations on me in terms of the way I was growing up. And specifically, I'm going to give you guys a school scenario, because back in high school is when teenagers are typically known to be really rebellious, young adults as well, especially if you are from a really really like restrictive family. You tend to be like that because you are afraid of like the consequences and everything, but you still want to have fun, so you tend to push the limits and all that. So back in high school, I remember they would hold seminars on on why you should not drink. They would hold seminars on why you should not smoke. So if you look at it, speaking as a general fact, teachers are parents themselves. So when they are in school, they would like to. Their kids are their. I mean, their sort of kids are the students, and they want to sort of make sure that the students grow up as well and as put together as possible. While in at home, you know how teachers always like to tell you that school is your second home, and it's always like that. So when you're at home, you have your parental expectations, the things you can do, the things you can't do, curfew, all that. When you're in school, you have the image. You have to maintain the image of a good student. No drinking, no smoking, good grades. And a lot of teachers are pressuring in that sense, because at the end of the day, it boils down to worry and concern, and it's something that they always want to make sure that their kids are okay. However, I feel like this style of parenting, if you will, has led to so many miscommunications, and its effects it has adverse effects. The intentions are good, however the actions carried out might not be so effective. Hence, the effects have been completely flipped over. And actually, a study found that 82% of teenagers and young adults lie to their parents. 82%. That is a huge number. And again, I think it boils also back down to what Rakesh said about trust. When I did read this somewhere as well. When you are with a person, and as in your family, we tend to make assumptions about the other person. For example, my dad tends to make assumptions about me, and I with him. My mom also does the same thing. But we never ask them if they are okay with it, or if they are okay in general. So, in terms of that, for example, my mom really wanted me to go into to become a doctor, right? And then she knows that I can do it, but perhaps she's never asked me about it. And then if she just shoves me into it, I would be really dissatisfied. So Suvin, you also mentioned communication is key, but when it comes to this, families never communicate. I feel like you guys will understand this, because it's a thing where families don't communicate. They just think you like this food, right? Like, for example, you say you like waffles like 3 years ago, and then one day they'll just wake up and then they'll buy you a whole block of waffles, and then they'll be like, oh, you like waffles, right? And then that was 3 years ago. It's an assumption that they still think, they still make, and they're like, oh, she likes waffles, but she mentioned that 3 years ago. She should still like it now. But preference changes as well. Personality changes. People change throughout time, and sometimes I feel like the waffle scenario is a really like a simple one. I would say if you apply that to our current lives, It's very prevalent as well, because I think one of my parents did tell me, hey, didn't you want to become like a scientist in the future or something, like you said that last time. That I said that when I was like 10. I'm 21 now. That is like that's a lot of years and a lot of lessons that I've learned that probably have shaped me into who I am. And it's quite unfortunate, I think, that sometimes parents don't understand this in terms of that the child is a whole new, completely different person. And looking at it now, in terms of how it has affected my mental health, um, my parents were never overly restrictive. They were strict, yes, but that is also because of regular concerns. And however, I've seen the way it's affected my friends. I have had this friend who always just says that he is a very go with the flow type of person, and that is great. But when the flow that is dictated by your parents is really something you do not want to go with, how does that feel? So I've seen many of my friends suffer from a lot of internalized anger and internalized disappointment and hatred. And in this society, we tend to compare ourselves, right? Social media is building up this perfect world that we see online, and we always tend to compare ourselves to other people's success, other people's perfect relationships, perfect families. And then there's a lot of internalized anger that I see that causes, that boils down and causes severe anxiety, severe depression. And then eventually they don't feel the want to live their life anymore, because essentially their life is not dictated by them, it's dictated by their parents. And it is a bit upsetting to see that a lot of my friends go through this. um However, what do you guys think on, like, how do we combat this as students, or as children from the other side? Because we are not the one implementing this style of parenting, we are the ones on the receiving end of it. How can we like go about telling our parents, like, please understand and please stop, you know
Where the way I combat it is that, okay, when my parents told me, when I was young, like, you have to be a doctor, at that time I didn't realize. I just said yes. And eventually when SPM was over, right, and then, like, okay, let's go look for universities to study doctor. That is when I was like, I was hesitating. I had this like fear in myself, but I just I had, at that point of time, I had the courage to say no. Because when I told them no, they were like, but you said yes last time, like, what is this now? And then then I told them, like, that was long time ago. Now my views, has changed, and my hobbies have changed. So I told them that I really like technology. I want to do something in IT. So, and then they understood, and they're like, okay, fine, you want to do IT. But even then they're like, oh, you should do software engineering, that is very good, and stuff like that. I was like, okay, anything is IT space, I'm fine. Okay, I'm fine with it. And then eventually when we went to like a student fair, right? And then from software engineering changed to cybersecurity, like, last minute. So I pulled the 180 there lah. Like, okay, fine, do IT, but they want me to do software engineering, but I don't really keen to do it. So yeah, so I eventually choose cybersecurity. So that is when but let's say if I didn't do the communication there and there, like that and there and there, I think I would be doing medicine same like Kirtana. I was so dissatisfied with my life right now that I wouldn't be like enjoying the stuff I'm doing right now. So I feel like communication is key, like what I said just now. But that is where I was courageous enough to tell them, like, this is what I want, and this is what I want to do in the future, and then they understood lah.
I kind of agree with Sweet on that. So I kind of wanted to like say the same thing. Communication is really what can sort of like, fix this issue that we have, and also bring the youth closer to their parents, and the parents closer to the youth, for them to understand each other. In the end, I feel it's all about compromisation. So, our parents, they want the best for us, and we want to also satisfy, we want to sort of like, make them proud of us, get their validation, and be like, okay, yes, all these years brought me up, I am doing the best I can, and I hope that, you are proud of what I've whatever choices I'm making in my life right now. So from the very beginning, communication has to be there. Like for me, for example, when I was young in primary school, about, I would say, even like lower primary, 8, 9, like that, and I used to like come back with like really great results, and my parents used to be like, "Oh, okay, you seem to be doing really well." And also, like, I think they like met a few. I mean, I think they met one astrologer or something like that, and the person was like, "Oh, if he becomes a doctor with the results he's getting, he becomes a doctor, he will do really, really well." So my parents just looked. My mom looked at me and she's like, "Oh, so doctor?" And then I was like, at that point, at the age of 8, I was like, honestly, I have no intention, no passion at all in treating other people. Like, I really appreciate the whole profession, but I don't have the passion at all to do medicine. And at that very moment, they were like, okay, Rakesh is not going to do medicine for life. So even at the age of 17, when I like came out of school, and my bio was good and everything, I had all the qualifications to do medicine. When they were listing out, like, we were all thinking about what can I do, they didn't even mention the option of medicine at that point, because they know that I've been anti-medicine since the beginning. So that in that way, I feel like, I communicated with them. I told them that is not something I'm interested in, and they sort of like understood. And it also came for, later on, we were talking about options and everything. They used to be like, "Oh, so do you want to do engineering, or do you want to do something like, since you're a number kind of person, do you want to do something like actual science or something like that?" And I told them like, "No, this is not my area." Even my father was like pretty into it. He was like, "No lah, this is something good. It will be good for you in the future, 5-10 years from now. The income is good, the lifestyle is good." But I told him, yes, it may be, but it's not something I want to do. So they understood that communication was there. And it's not just academics, but come to other things like, curfews, hanging out with friends, sort of like making certain life decisions. I'm not saying that the communication in my house has always been the best. I do agree with Brittany. It's not always there. The assumption is always there, like, oh, okay, he doesn't like this, or he may like this. So the assumption is always there. But I feel like we got to make it a point, at least, once in a while, as no matter how busy we are, take the time to, once in a while, just go sit with the parents, talk with them, let them know what are your interests. And every time you let them know something, you got to also assure them with, a reason behind it. So like, I like to do this, and I might be doing this in the coming years, maybe next year, maybe 2 years from now. And the reason I'm doing it is because of this, what the expected result might be. And yeah, you don't have to worry, because I kind of like have thought about the pros and cons about it. And yeah, so from there you kind of like communicate with them, reason out with them, and it might be a bit easier for them to accept the decisions that you are making. So it all comes down to communication for me.
I think also at the end of the day, we as children also need to realize that our parents are very inherently human, and they go through the same complex emotions that we all do, and it is very, very difficult for them to sort of understand and identify if we don't say anything. So if we always keep it to ourselves, and then we are always in our heads thinking, why do my parents force me to do this? What did I do in my past life to get such parents? And I feel like if you're always thinking on that end, it will be very detrimental to our mental health. So like you guys said, communication is always key, as well as to not make assumptions, and trust, it has to be built. And in terms of communication with your parents, it is so awkward sometimes. I can understand that so many like youths and young adults, they don't do it solely because they always think that their parents will never understand. But I think the best way to combat that awkwardness is actually to approach it and break the bubble. It's like once you break the ice, it will be a lot better to sort of communicate with your parents. And on that note, I think we'll take a short 3-minute break, and we'll have a short intermission, and we'll be back. So see you guys. guys. Thank you for listening on this podcast. So, again, we are tackling the topic on the Mental Health Podcast hosted by Rotrack 3300 on tiger parenting. So, again, back in the previous question, we were talking about how to deal with tiger parenting, especially from the receiving end of it. And we have come up with a few ways in terms of communication and breaking the ice with your parents, that inevitable ice that you have ignored for the last 20 years. You have to break it in order for them to understand what you are going through. And again, I would like to ask this to Suvin and Rakesh. Do you guys have you guys had any close friends or even yourself, like if you guys have been tiger parented, like Suvin said, what are the ways that what are the most effective ways that you actually put up with it? Because we all know that some parents can be really relentless. How do you compromise in that sense?
Right.
Well, I would have a perfect. Okay, Rakesh, go first.
It's okay. So you can go first.
Okay, so I have a perfect example. So okay, so what I did was, okay, like I said, the awkwardness, the ice breaking stuff, that was, the most awkward part that I have to deal with. But when I eventually broke it down and explained to my parents like what am I doing and stuff like that, that really like made the relationship between me and my parents a lot better. Like for example, my mom, right? Let's say she told me that today's curfew is like 10 a.m. Sorry, 10 p.m. And then I came around like 12. So she will still be awake, and then like she like in the moment I come into the house, she'll ask her why you're so late and stuff like that. So that is the first time I realized in my head that, okay, let me tell her what I did. Let me like put her in a scenario that, let's say I was going out drinking with my friends. Let me put her in the situation I was in her head. Like I told her, oh, we were talking about this, we were having fun, we were laughing about that. She's like, okay. So that now result to where, let's say if I now come home like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., right? Maybe the next day she'll ask, oh, what you guys did. Then I told her the stories lah. So she gets like a, how to say, like a connection between me and my parents, like I put them in a situation where I was like, like talking about the funny things we did and stuff like that. And the most important part is the road track stuff. When I do join university and join into road track, right? Sometimes the meetings and the events we plan, right, will take a lot of time, and we'll come back maybe one after like during the fellowship and stuff. And she asked like, that time she couldn't really grasp what was road track and what I was doing, and she thought like it's a reason for me to come home late. But then I told her like, oh, I do charity stuff, and for example, I went to Sarawak, right, to do some charitable stuff. So I told her like, we went to this like orphanage home, and like we need to clean and stuff like this. There was like a how to say, like an ice box, like a huge ice box. And then I told her like, we took a very long time to push that thing, and then as I was pushing it, then I accidentally hit my head in the fire extinguisher bottle. So I told her stories like that. Like that made her like, how to say, that made her like calm down a little bit, like took the strictness away a little bit, the restrictions away a little bit, because she knows that when I do come back home, I will tell her what I did and stuff like that, and she could relate to that, and she could like trust me more, like, oh, okay, my son is doing good, it's not as bad as I thought it were and stuff like that. So that's how I combat. And as for my friends, right, I told them the same thing. For example, I have a friend who, like just now I told, where she will send the pictures that she took last time that she with her friends, to her parents, if let's say she going out to bar today. So I told her like, instead of just lying, like don't lie, you're making it just harder for yourself. Tell your parents what you're doing. Okay, I'm going out with my friends, I'm drinking, I'm gonna have some fun, talk some stuff like that. And then when you do come back, explain to your parents what you did, talk about the fun things you did. And eventually, my friend's curfew, there's no more already. She can come back home whatever time she wants. And being the only, if I'm not mistaken, I think she's the only child. I do understand, if they have like a female child, right? The how to say that the fearness is more compared to
because they worry about their safety. Definitely, that's understandable. Yeah.
So she like explained to her, oh, I'm going. Okay, this is the friend who's coming to fetch me. I'll be coming home this time, and this is where I'll be. And then when you do come back home, tell what you did, or we talk about this. We had fun and stuff like that. So for her to bridge the communication with she and her parents, that made me like, how to say, that made me realize that maybe my idea wasn't so bad because it worked with my friends and a couple of other friends I had. So it's like that. Maybe I'm like some sort of unconsciously helping my friends to bridge communication between their them and their parents lah. So that's one of the way that I combat, and it worked with my other friends as well. So what about you, Rakesh? Like, how do you combat this? I want to hear your
Right.
perspective.
Firstly, I got to say that idea of talking to your parents and throwing them, that's actually a really good idea. I think I might use that in the future. Because okay, so for me, I have come later than curfews before. Sometimes I have my curfew usually is about 12 or 1 a.m. and I usually come back. At times, I just come half an hour later or 1 hour later when I'm out with my friends. I mean, like pre-COVID, when I used to be out with my friends in the Mamak and everything, and then I come back like about 2 in the morning. And my mom would be like, oh, so why are you coming so late and everything? So I'd be like, no, lah, I just wanted to hang out with them and I didn't really see them for a long time. And I never really had a way of overcoming it because, when I'm telling my mom, my dad understands because he also, I'm pretty sure he used to, do this when he was younger, when he just got married and everything. So he'd be like, no lah, I'm sure he just wants to talk to his friends and everything. So it was a bit easy for me. But when it comes to my friends, there are a number of my friends who, they find it difficult to, their parents are quite strict and everything. So when I ask them, like, how do you do it? Some of them, they choose to talk nicely and, try to reason it out and everything. At times it works, at times it doesn't. And there are some friends who, they talk and then, their parents are stubborn and then they are stubborn and then it ends up with both them, like, arguing and shouting at each other. And yeah, it kind of happens. So, I would say, what I was going to say initially about, the way you can do it is to communicate, which is something we have been discussing for a while now. But I think after hearing what Subin said, I think that's actually a really, really good idea to, sit down with them and talk to them, like your own friend, sort of like story it to them, give them a bit of insight into your, what you do and everything. So, I mean, that's the cases for, when it comes to curfews and so, but there are also some of my friends who have been facing tiger parenting in a different scale. And these are like, okay, so I do have certain friends who are like really, really high achievers. Like, throughout school, they have been really performing top of their game all the time. Grades are high, prefect, some of them are head prefect, primary, secondary, higher secondary. They are always like top of their game, And then they go to college, they have a CGPA 3.8 and above. Then they're in university and then they're always like trying. So some of them, they have been, at the top of the game for 10 years and more, that it comes to a point now when, everything, this is the time where you actually have to put 100% effort and grow as a person. They are sort of tired and burnt out. So I think this was what Brittany mentioned earlier about adverse effects. This was the pressure that was put on them throughout their schooling life, throughout their younger part of their childhood, that now when they are actually meant to put that work and effort, they are too tired to do it. They are burnt out. They can't seem to, do what they used to do. They can't work 5 days a week, attending all classes, doing all work, after classes like self-studying and so on. It's tough for them. So when I ask them, like, oh, so how do you, manage, how do you, explain this to your parents? Try to explain to them why your performance isn't as good as last time. And it's quite disappointing to hear that they can't speak to their parents about it. And then when I ask them why, they are like, could they really understand that I'm tired of, what I'm doing after 10 years of effort? Because what they're probably going to say is, I've done 40 years of what you just did. So they sort of like don't understand, the kind of pressure that has been put onto us. Because, I mean, I'm not saying that, our parents didn't, do great amount of work and put huge amount of efforts when they were growing up. But personally, I do believe that in this current generation we live in, the 21st century, I believe that a student's life is much more pressured than it has ever been. That's what I believe, because maybe last time it was just a matter of academics, but today it's so much more than that. It's academics, getting involved in clubs and societies, getting involved in professional bodies outside, attending all kinds of webinars and talks and knowing more about your career. And as soon as you go out, your resume has to be completely packed with, so many skills and experience. Just for a fresh grad job, you have to have so much of experience, outside your studies, in clubs and everything. So, some of my friends, they do not know how to talk to their parents and make them understand, why they feel in this way. And when I want to give them an advice as a friend, I do not know how they can, take this to their parents. But the best I can do as a friend is, if you can't talk it to them, come talk it to me. At least, you're venting it out somewhere. So that's also something like, if anyone here is ever listening and going through the same thing, my advice would be, talk it out to the people around you who would understand. Because at least you are stuck in that circle of mindset. At least when you talk it out to someone, they sort of like take you out of there, sort of like calm you down, all that bottled up emotions sort of like reduces, and then you have some room to think about it again from a fresh perspective. You think about it, you get to approach it from a different angle, and maybe you might have a bit more effort, or maybe you might start to take different measures on how you do things from then on. So yeah.
I think, Rakesh, you make a very good point in terms of having somebody to listen to. I think at the end of the day, with the current situation and the current world we live in, it's a very competitive world. Everything you do gets compared to somebody else. Regardless of your professional life, your personal life, everything is getting compared, and it's sad to say that most of the time we are the ones comparing ourselves to others. And then when you look at it like that, and especially, it's understandable. Again, not everybody has the privilege of having parents that they can talk to, because they are, as we were speaking, I did think of so many scenarios where parents are just really cold. And when that happens, I think the best thing that one can do is to either talk to a friend or talk to a professional if they do need it. If it becomes too severe, because it is important for us to recognize that we shouldn't jeopardize our own health just to please our parents. And that's extremely important as we go along in life, because by doing so, I think it breeds a cycle of bad parenting, if I'm being completely honest. Because when stuff like this has been done to you, this is the only thing you ever know. So this way of putting so much pressure on your children and your family itself, it will repeat. It's a repetitive cycle. And again, I would like to advise all the viewers of this podcast, if you ever do need help, you can feel free to check out our National Coalition Wellbeing of Malaysia's hotlines that are specifically catered to people who need help. So if you ever feel down, or you just need to talk to someone, you can feel free to call the helpline. And yeah, with that, thank you guys for being here. I would like to wrap up our podcast, and I would just like to say that all stories, views, and opinions from our side are not exactly professional. However, we do hope that our views and opinions and advice will be able to help you somewhere along your journey. Thank you everybody for attending, and we'll catch you guys on the next podcast. Bye. Take
Bye-bye.
care, everybody.
Bye.